Are we ready? Are you ready, Ray? Okay, well, welcome to the Tuesday, January 19th, 2016 Watertown City Council work session. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. And the first thing on our agenda is discussion on stormwater drainage issues. And Shane, I'm going to let you just kind of light this up. This is something I'll give a little heads up that we've been concerned about for Watertown for some time now, where water tends to back up in areas, and he's going to show you those concerned areas and what we can do with it. Kind of came to light again, as we were talking on the Roby Creek flood thing the other night, which I thought went extremely well. And Sarah, thank you again for doing that. It was a lot of work, and so Shane, I'll let you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, one of the key jobs I've been trying to get done since I've arrived about 6 months ago is initially when I came, I started receiving some phone calls on different drainage issues in town, and of course we've got about 5 sub-watersheds. We have a watershed for the Lake Compesca, one for Lake Pelican, one for the Big Sioux River, Roby Creek, and Willow Creek. And essentially all of those, of course, are subsets of the greater Big Sioux River drainage basin, and they each have their own unique attributes and places, that of need in each of those watersheds. What I really want to kind of do is do a quick overview and kind of give you an idea of what has happened in the not so recent past regarding these issues, and then kind of speed you forward to where we are today. So each of these watersheds that you see on the screen, there's Roby Creek. Of course, that's the center of the city. It does include all of North Ridge. It does extend over to slightly to the east of 19th Street, and then ultimately it, of course, outlets. Oops, that's fast. Anyway, it outlets past the mall down in a man-made channel, essentially from that point down to the Big Sioux River. One of the other ones, Lake Pelican watershed, actually covers a surprising portion north of 212. It comes all the way up by the airport. As you follow my cursor around, it even includes a part of what we call the Derby Downs subdivision, and all the way out, to about a mile west of town there. So that's Lake Pelican. Big Sioux River, of course, is the corridor along the Big Sioux, but it also reaches out into some portions of the airport to the north, through all the industrial park, and through a core part of the old city. Willow Creek, surprisingly, goes quite a bit east of the city, and then also covers that northeast part of town that's developing currently. So that's the major sheds. In 2006, a manual was put together, and these are all excerpts out of that manual. And in 2006, the stormwater needs for financial reasons were estimated at just over $12 million. And then subsequently in 2011, or heading into the 2011 season, city staff, I don't know, this thing's crashing. Am I moving? Do I have too much open? Yeah.
Right click down there and just hit close, reopen on Adobe. Say close, and then reopen them. You'll have to go find them wherever they were.
Okay, this is a list. So this is the 2011 upgrade to that 2006 study, and we prioritized the projects as three priority lists here, and the bottom line is in 7 years, we didn't really gain anything. So we still have an estimated stormwater budget looming out there of $13 million. Some of this work has probably been completed, but there's always something that's needed and is falling back in place in these. And to kind of give you a more specific idea of what some of those needs are, and this is one that we're kind of trying to coordinate a little bit with the Highway 212 improvements, is this is what's referred to as the South Highway 81 system. This is 81 coming into town from the south. This is the wastewater plant over here. So 14th Street comes along here to just to the east out of this picture, or to the right out of the picture. This is the mall, and so Roby Creek is this boundary right here. The major issue is once you leave the Shopko parking lot up here along 212 is the watershed really becomes undefined, and there's a large portion of water that leaves this area and has no consistent way to make it down to the river. And you know, the river's just out of view down here to the south, but there's also these properties here that are developing, and this old channel has either been partially filled or not maintained so that it drains well. And so when we start to look at developing and improving roads, like Jensen Avenue was kind of on our radar for improvements. These streets, as they start to come out here into across this watershed piece, aren't accommodating that drainage that needs to be managed. And so that's a high dollar project. We don't even have a solid estimate on what that project would be right now, but we need to make sure that we address this water drainage way through here and or take part of it over to this Willow or Roby Creek piece here. So that's just an example of a project that's probably going to be a high priority in the near future. Another one.
Shane, as you do that, is that something that we would do in conjunction with the reworking of Jensen?
It would be a component of Jensen, yes.
To get some of that water pulled
It
over.
wouldn't necessarily have to be complete, but we would have
In
elements of this
part.
drainage improvements would also include enhancements along
Pulling some of that water over that way.
Jensen, correct. Another one, this is an older neighborhood, Highland Boulevard system it's called. I believe this is 11th Street that comes through town. The roundabout would be up here to the, in the north east quarter to the right here. There is a fair amount of storm sewer in this neighborhood, but some of it's probably undersized. And then there's reaches of the neighborhood that, for economic reasons, originally when it developed, stormwater just wasn't extended into it. One road in particular is, there's a, Sarah, remind me, Karen Street, and that actually has a bottom that doesn't really have an the only outlet to the street drainage is a culvert that crosses at mid-block between two houses. And when it rains hard, somebody sent me photos of what that looks like. And the water is essentially up past the sidewalks on both sides of the street, you know, and with a little bit more rainfall or a longer rainfall, wouldn't take much to push that water into somebody's driveway or garage, and, you know, maybe even into their basement, depending on how well sealed up their basement is. So that is a large dollar project, because you basically have to start at the bottom of the watershed here at Highland Park and build storm sewer all the way out to intercept that storm sewer water, or, you know, the runoff. So those are two really good examples of projects that'll need a large infusion of funding. And I guess I just want to kind of map this out so that we as a city going forward identify these and find a way to fund projects and know what's out there that we can manage or handle in the future. So there's other projects out there in each of these watersheds. There's stormwater ponds that should be developed in certain regions, and other things that are out there is we should probably create get a stormwater comprehensive plan piece put in place for the whole community. We have bits and pieces of it. We have 3 studies done on Willow Creek, for example. We have now a Roby Creek floodplain that's been redefined. Projects like that are still are good, and they're moving things forward, but they're not getting it all done. So what we need to do is just identify these issues and kind of plan for the future. So
Yeah, I guess what
that's
I really
quick version.
Yeah, what I really wanted to share with you guys tonight is that we do have some issues with water and getting some water out of here, whether we have small retention ponds or large retention ponds or move it into the rivers. We need to do that. So I wanted you guys to be aware of something like this where Shane is going to be, Shane and Sarah will be putting this together, and they're going to come back to us with a priority list. You know, where's our biggest priority that we have to work on? The problem that we're going to run into is really finding a funding vehicle to do this. And based on that also, you know, there's ideas out there being floated that we can use and can't use. And but it's important that the people in town know that we need to address these water issues. Brookings had this type of a problem just a short number of years ago, and they solved it. They solved it very easily, and they did some things that I think was very good for the city, and it turned out extremely well. It took a lot of the flooding issues away. So I'm going to let any questions that you have for this, why we're bringing this forward, why we're doing it. I just think it's important that we know what's happening, what our priority list is, and we're going to go from there.
Shane, and no criticism of your office, this looks like a huge undertaking to put a plan together. Is that something that your office would do, or would be contracting this out, or I guess thoughts on that?
Probably a little of each. I would say that small segments of this we would design as we go. Other pieces that are bigger, like this Highland Park system, we'd probably, you know, get a consulting firm involved, because we would want to do some hydraulic modeling and things like that we don't have the software and the expertise to get done. But so there are some components that we would help manage and others not. In addition to just these general physical improvements we've got to do, I mean, we've got to we'll have to continue to fund our MS4 program and some of the educational pieces that we pull out of that. You know, so there's other aspects other than just physical storm sewer projects that we'll do too. One of my biggest things that I want to look at a stormwater comprehensive plan piece is so that we can prepare maybe for some regions that better fit a regional pond rather than have, you know, small developments come along that all of them need a pond. Maybe we have better identified location to take and build a bigger pond rather than have 10 or 15 small ponds along the way. And so a comprehensive plan piece is very key. There's a couple other things I'd like to have that plan kind of identify, and these are kind of items that go hand in hand with being in the low area is, you know, we have a lot of wetlands, and if something needs to be that's important or priority that needs to impact a wetland, if we have our own city wetland bank that a project can buy from or borrow to, you know, get some wetlands built up around the city. I mean, and then along with that, of course, a key thing is to try to make them not an eyesore. You want to do it in such a way that you're enhancing an area too, you know. So drainage way doesn't have to look like an ugly drainage way. It can look
Could you
almost
explain,
parkish.
let's step back about 25 words where you said water bank. I want them to understand that you're talking about mitigation.
Right.
Explain that banking part of it, will you?
Okay, so if we have a project that we knowingly is gonna impact existing wetlands, when we go in there and fill that area for whatever public use we need to offset that on a 2-to-1 ratio. So if we take an acre of wetlands from one location, we have to recreate 2 acres in another location. And ideally, we would do that within watersheds, but that's not always easy to do. But what I do want to be able to do is create these wetland banks within the city limits so that we can prioritize city properties as the benefactory to those wetland banks. So we do need to identify that as a potential cost savings need, because if you develop those banks in advance, it can speed up your project and it can cost a lot less if you already have it developed. So those are very unique needs. You know, some communities don't have those issues at all because they're up on a bluff and they just don't have them. But we're in a low area. We've got wetlands all around the city. And as we grow out, we'll needs to address those.
Shane, can you go back to that other map on the South 81? Because what you're talking about kind of leads into my next question, so. That page 6 and page 7, who owns that property? Is that city-owned property, or anybody know?
I believe the city owns both of those, yep.
So when you're talking about banking wetlands, some of that could be used into that.
Correct.
I think we all know that on Highway 212 and on Jensen Avenue around the Shopko area historically is always flooded. Is any of that in the plans when they reconstruct 212, or?
Well, when they reconstruct 212, they'll address some of the upstream sheds that come through the 212 system, but they won't handle anything beyond the right-of-way
Yep.
boundaries. So in other words, you know, typically in that area along 212, water flows from the north under or through the storm sewer system that 212 has and is outletted to the south into Roby Creek, into the Big Sur River, et cetera. So they'll size their components to handle that, but beyond that, it'll all be.
So we may have to size some of that component on the south of that to get rid of that water past that.
That's exactly what we're
Yep.
identifying as issues. And it has nothing to do, I mean, the DOT isn't contributing more water
No.
than they are currently, but if something wasn't sized correctly in 1960 that we're replacing today at a larger pipe, we just need to make sure that we're handling that to the outfall at the Big Sioux River.
Where does that drain into? Right there from, does that go over to straight south from that?
The Roby Creek does. It goes
Yep.
straight down. This is basically a man-made channel and
That drains into that storm sewer or stormwater drainage channel that goes right straight south of 11th?
correct.
Yeah.
Let me get down there. Let's see. Okay, so the 11th Street intersection is right here. This is the mall. And that drainage, Roby Creek drainage channel comes down past the wastewater plant and into the Big Sioux River down here. And essentially, you know, this is the new softball complex over here. These were old sewer lagoons that I assume maybe still get used for an overflow situation, but generally don't treat the sewer. They just kind of hold it until it can be run through the plant. So yeah, there's some, even if we own properties down along here, those are locations where we can enhance areas to create wetland banks or other enhancements that treat stormwater accordingly. I mean, we have a lot of plans that are out there in studies and so forth that identify future pond sites, but a lot of them aren't built yet. And of course, we'd try to incorporate some type of buyback component if we did create them and somebody needed to buy a wetland credit from the city, we could even entertain those kind of buybacks. You know, if we build a regional pond, those subdivisions that would would be not participating by building their own pond would pay a fee to recover part of the cost of the regional pond. So
Well, it'd be a lot easier to manage regional ponds. And of course, when you're talking about just, so it doesn't look like just a drainage pond, you know, to keep it well groomed and you could actually build a nice, well, like they are east of 19th there. I mean, that's,
correct. Yep. So there's a lot of things that we need to pay attention to and know that what's coming, and as we enhance some of these areas, I'm afraid that you know, if we had a rainstorm like Sioux Falls had this last summer, that area by Shopko would be pretty much a mess. You know, so not that
Shane,
we can handle that kind of event, because I mean, nobody builds to that thing, but to that size of event routinely. I mean, that was well over 100-year flood, if I remember, or 100-year event, if I remember correctly. It was like a 115-year event, which is pretty substantial, and we wouldn't design for that level, but we certainly need to have more than what we have now.
Shane, you've mentioned the comprehensive plan that needs to get put in place. Is that pulling the one that you've been looking at and using and it's been updated and blowing the dust off it and
Well,
then reworking that, or what's the time frames
Probably-
for getting a comprehensive
probably
plan?
would need to be reviewed and updated. I mean, there's some projects that have been completed, some of them that were never attempted, and you need to redefine that periodically. And, you know, whatever that period is, we could all decide to go back routinely after this point. But as far as I can tell, there hasn't been a recent comprehensive study that looked at all quadrants and all watersheds.
I mean, because we really need to look at not only the existing issues we have, but, you know, as our community's growing and try to be
Right.
proactive in those areas. But, so when would something like that be able to be done? Because it's hard to move forward with much of anything without a plan.
Correct.
When would something like that, is that a 6-month project? Is that a year from now we'd be talking about looking at that?
Well, I'd have to enlist some consultants to kind of get that figured out. I would think that it would probably be at least a year type of time frame. I mean, we wouldn't be ready to do anything with it, you know, in the first year after it's done, until you know what projects you're gonna take on and fund, you know.
Right,
so-
but if I may, you know, one of the things that we need to do as a city is to have enough vision to see how we're gonna finance this, because Shelley just has a struggle writing that check every time. I don't get it. You know, but we do need to look at that, and we're one of very few cities that have a comprehensive plan for stormwater that we do not have going forward, so.
Steve, is there some things that you've considered or heard as far as ways that we would fund that? Some
Absolutely.
suggestions? I mean,
You know, I didn't really want to get into the financial side of it tonight. I wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the concerns we've got. We'll be bringing something forward by our March 1st meeting that will show how we could fund projects like this and how we could get it done, so I think
yeah,
that's
and
fair, isn't it,
and I think
Shane?
that would include how we've recently been funding projects. You know, we'll talk about how we're doing it now, and then evaluate whether it's working well or not, and then maybe look at alternatives that maybe make it easier.
I think that's fair. Any more questions for Shane?
it seemed part of this plan would help with what we probably already are working on, new things, but it sounds like we have issues in other parts of town that weren't dealt with before, and that seems like that, whatever the process for that might be, for lack of a better way of saying, a one-term thing, or at least when it's done, and then from going forward, we'd have some other solution as far as if you had these regional ponds, there'd be some type of fee and to the developer to drain to them, but it's gonna be another issue to deal with stuff in the existing area. I mean, as far as how that would be funded, and which I know you don't want to get into, but I
Yeah.
guess that that would be
I
a
think
separate
that's-
deal, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly correct. I think that's a good statement. You know, we're trying to catch up for things that didn't get done over the past, and you can't do it all overnight. And I think Shane's got a great plan in place.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
to
and
get
one
this-
other facet to that, and I'll just make this a really brief comment, but I mean, some of the initial storm sewer stuff was designed and developed at the turn of the 19th century. You know, so what they used for design standards then are different than what we expect for performance today. So we need to look at the entire footprint of the city and decide our priorities on that. And, you know, some of those areas that do have storm sewer may not be adequately performing today. So that's another piece of that we need to look at and come forward with
Yeah.
plans.
And I think this flows right into, no pun intended, but this flows right into where you had on your streets. You know, you're putting in new streets. If they need it, you're going to have the drain tile alongside, which will go into either retention or into stormwater, things like that Shane's bringing forward that I think something the city has lacked for a long time, because you can't afford to build a road and then have the water just destroy it in 2 or 3 years and do it again. There's ways we can stop that, and I think this is one way we got to get going. Okay? Good enough. Thank you. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention a couple other things. I know they're not on the agenda, but it's just open things that have kind of gone on in the area. I wanted to mention one here is an idea I thought was kind of cool. And you guys know how I like ideas, and you throw them against the wall and see if it sticks or not. But I was visiting with Don Eggert the other day out at the radio station, and Don was asking me what's our plans to increase our air service in town. And I thought, well, you know, we're planning on advertising, and we're bringing in this airplane in March so that the public can get out there and take a look at it and see it. And he said, well, did you ever think about having, and just tell me if you guys think it's a good idea or a bad idea, that's why we're throwing it out here. Do you ever think about having a kind of a big heavy hors d'oeuvres, something out at the airport? He said, Steve, you should run out and you should go to the likes of Brookings and Arlington and Volga and Dawson and Willow Lake. He's naming off all these towns, and go to their council meetings and just invite them to come to Watertown and use our air service when it starts in April or May, whenever it does. And I thought, you know, that's a pretty good idea. So we could, I'm kind of kicking it around that when we bring that airline in March, to bring the airplane here, that Embraer, I forget the number of it, but it's a 50-passenger jet. So I think we're going to have a kind of a party out there. No booze. It's a public place, so it's city-owned, so there's no booze. So anybody's got to have it, stay home. So there'll be a lot of hors d'oeuvres. So, no, one of those deals where I think we're just going to invite all the neighboring towns to support our airline. And I think it's a good idea that he had, and we're going to do that. So if you have any suggestions on that, let me know at any time.
I think that's a great idea, and we need to promote this and get it kicked off, because we all know things went backwards and we got to rebuild that. But if we can get started, the quicker we can get people on track and start to use it, the better the service will get, and hopefully the potential of expanding on the services out there will come quicker too. Because that's one of the comments is Denver, which I think is going to be fine. But that guy commented to us, if that goes good, then he's going to look at the possibility going the other direction at some time. I think we all got to work together to see that maybe can happen.
I think so. And in visiting with Mickey, it sounds like he would give up 10, 12 free round trip air tickets to Denver. If we have a little drawing out there during this thing, and just kind of get people involved in it and get folks out there to get excited about this new airline coming in. And I will tell you that it's going to be pretty cool to have that 50-seat jetter come in here. Billboard issue, I wanted to just mention that Tim Lallam upstairs in the building service area, he's going to be working on this for me. We're putting together a group. If you haven't been notified already, you will be, but Bruce is going to be on there, Mike is going to be on there. And the reason I asked those two guys is that they were extremely involved prior to the billboard and to the sign issue in Watertown. That was a number of years ago. It had to be 10 years ago, wasn't it, Mike? At least, Bruce? 10 years or so? And I think it's important that we kind of step back and take a look. What's that? Bruce had hair. That's mean. Yeah, that was mean. So, and then we're going to have First District on there, myself. Shane will be there from engineering. Tim, of course, will kind of He knows the rules inside and out on the current way. But First District also, you know, they know the changes in the Supreme Court decisions that have gone on and how we need to address that. So that's going to be coming up here just shortly. Tomorrow is I'm heading off to Pier for 3 days for the tourism convention. I want to let you know that I will be meeting with Joel Junt in Pier on Thursday. We're going to have lunch together. And one of the things we're going to talk about is our new, and Don was at a meeting that we were at this last week with the H2O20 committee. We were looking at the reconstruction of Highway 212, and this is our only chance to really make Watertown more of a beautiful, you know, when you drive in, to make something look better than just a lot of gray concrete. So I believe it was Lalem there too, wasn't it? It wasn't Tim, but his brother Kyle. Kyle is going to spearhead that group for the H2O20. We'll be very involved in that. So we're going to just see if there isn't something that we can do now as a city to kind of change the looks of how 212 will look when you come in from the east or the west. Doesn't make any difference. So I want to let you guys know that that is going on. I also wanted to bring up, we had a meeting, I think, Don, you were there, I was there, Jim, I see Jim's in the audience from Glacial Lakes Energy. They're in this meeting. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on what we talked about. We're kind of, you know, we're talking about the closure of Broadway. What happened was, and Shane was there, you can step in any time if you want to. We talked about the bridge. We had Joel Junt on the line from Pier with the DOT. We talked about the bridge, which is a major discussion point for HESCO. HESCO, as you know, they currently come into their business with semi-loads of product. And in those particular semi-loads they bring in are too heavy for the current bridge on the north side by Little River City. So what we're looking at is we were currently thinking that, well, we had to build a big 1.1 or $1.2 million bridge. And in visiting with Joel and Lori Schultz, Lori made the comment, she says, well, if it's only serving one entity, you know, you're probably looking at between $500,000 and $700,000 for a bridge to repair it. And then what you would do is not have a 40-foot wide bridge, but you would take it down to 20 foot. Made sense to me. My conversation today with Jim Sire in the audience is that he visited with Mark Junkers from Austin Engineering. Mark is the one that did the inspections on that bridge, and he's the one that actually lowered the rating on the bridge to where it is today. Should have 50 ton, I believe, to get these things going across, and it's rated for 22 ton, I believe. What we're looking at is actually the pilings are good on the bridge. So there's not an issue with the actual foundation of the bridge. What we are looking at is the decking and the girders. That I believe that is the problem right now. And Mark made the comment to Jim that he feels as though anywhere between $300,000, possibly up to $400,000 with our engineering costs that are there could actually alleviate that problem. So we will be talking to the GOED on behalf of Glacial Lakes Energy and with our Watertown Development Company just to see where they're at on that, on help fund this particular project. HESCO, Brad Henricks's concern really was he had three major concerns. One was security, you know, people getting into his building and over to the business. I think we have that settled. That wasn't an issue now. Emergency access. One of his biggest concerns is his insurance costs would go up dramatic if he didn't have a second way out of his business. You know, if you only have to come from the north, you're kind of screwed because you know, if you got a fire there, you got to get out the south. He can't do it. But Glacial Lakes Energy said that they will have a road that goes all the way around for the railroad around their track. And there will be a gate there that can be opened up to have that access to go out the south if they need it. And that really took care of Brad's concern on that. One of the other things then Brad's concern is that the bridge needs to be fixed and done before access can be eliminated from the south. Because he's bringing in truckloads of things from the south because he can't come to the north. That's what I'm talking about on the weight. With Mark Junkers today, he made the comment that really a bridge, if you use the current foundation that's there, the pilings, you could probably get this thing done in 30 to 45 days. I don't disagree with that. I think it's an aggressive plan, but it can be done. So that's kind of where we're at on that. I wanted to let you guys know some of the things that are happening out there. One of the other concerns on that whole Glacial Lakes thing, and I think it's kind of working out, is Little River City. Little River City is nervous and they're concerned. I don't disagree that they will lose some business if Broadway is closed. So that needs to be addressed. And I did have a conversation with John today. John Daigle, I'm sure you all know him. He didn't feel real comfortable coming here and speaking tonight, but he will come probably to the Planning Commission. So what we did, just to give you a real quick synopsis of the time frame, Glacial Lakes is going to the Planning Commission on February the 4th. I think it's the 4th, isn't it? Help me out on that date.
Yep.
Okay, they're going to go February the 4th to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will take a look at this and see if they want to move it forward to the City Council. At that time, you guys are going to have to look at this a little heavier. Is there any other way we got to look at this?
Well, there'll be a public hearing at the February 4 Planning Commission. Then if they approve sending that forward to the City Council, well, I guess either way, if they take, whatever action they take would come before the City Council, the first meeting in March. There would be another public hearing at that point in time for you to listen to the public. And then at the close of that would be where the final decision on the petition for closure is, unless something else intervenes in that, which we don't anticipate or don't know at this time what that would be. But just a clarification, Mayor, I believe that 30 to 45 day window would be for how long it would take to construct the bridge, probably not the full length of the time period. I mean, you have to do all the design and preliminary stuff. So you're probably looking at, it could be built by the end of summer for sure. But I mean, but the actual construction would probably be a month and a half type time frame.
So that's kind of some things that are going on in town. That's all I have on my list of stuff. We still got a little time if you guys wanted to talk about anything or open it
Well,
up.
As that comes forward, then is it going to be tied to some type of plan with the bridge? Then it seems like that's got to be part of the process. So Glacial Lakes knows the time frame when they can start. I mean, I could envision it could probably be starting on part of it without closing off of the Broadway, but at the same time, there's got to be a commitment that the bridge is going to get done and so on in order for all that to take place.
Yeah, I think that was a commitment that we made to HESCO the other day, is that, they will have access from the south, before that bridge is, they got to have the bridge on the north side. So we gave them that assurance that would happen.
Yeah, the road closure would be contingent upon timelines for the replacement of that bridge to the north.
So that's kind of where we are. Anything else, you guys?
Mayor, do we know where we're at with current status out at the lake, the development?
We just talked about that, I think it was last Friday. I asked Shane if he's heard anything from Mr. Drake and Austin Engineering on that project, and I have not heard boo in my office.
We have not received any further information on that project.
So it's kind of just extremely quiet right now. Yeah, so hopefully, we can get things squared away. I really have some great ideas for Highway 212, just to touch on that again. I think that's can be kind of fun to see, and hopefully the state has open arms. And yeah, we're gonna we'll do this for you, Steve, and for the city of Watertown. We love you, all that kind of stuff.
Mayor, because that was an issue at the last meeting, do you want to make a brief comment as far as where we are with the affordable housing? Easier
Sure.
said than done.
Thanks for bringing that up. I should have had that written down. We had a great meeting. I thought it was very good. Glenn was there, and we talked about, well, there was Joy Nelson was there, and Shane was there, I was there, Randy was there, Beth was there. We had just a super meeting, and we talked about affordable housing in Watertown. And as you know, we talked about I threw it out to, one area of town, but what we did is Shane brought down all the different pieces of property that Watertown proper owns. And what we did is kind of looked at them and out of the 7, 8 different areas, which ones would work. So what we've actually instructed Shane to do for you folks is to take a look at the top 3 properties that we looked at, kind of throw some houses in there, throw some roads and some whatever you got to do as an engineer and make it look good and tell us if this would work or not. And once he gets that done, I think what we'll do is we'll bring that forward to you guys and you can discuss it. Another nice thing that's happened is that Relia Bank actually came in and Hugh Bartles brought some literature for us, and they actually want to be a supporting bank for affordable housing, and they're asking us to help look at a grant for $500,000 that could help for any infrastructure and anything like that. So it's exciting where this can go to. I think it's pretty cool. So thanks again for being there. We will we'll meet again. We're meeting again in another week, and then Shane, if you haven't got them done already, we're expecting that by the 28th. You haven't got enough on your plate.
Roll up my sleeves.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun, and we'll see how those pieces of property look. Anybody else got anything?
Steve, I don't know if this is the time, but the gun range meeting that we had, is that now, or should I wait until?
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to give a little update, I'll kind of top that. We had an H2O 20 meeting, and it included the gun range, and there was a lot of discussion about it. So I'll let you go ahead, Dan, and explain that.
Yeah, I attended a meeting, and it was just a preliminary meeting to talk about the potential of this gun range that we've talked about for quite a while. And I was thinking initially that was going to be for the police. But as the conversation went on, and I can, just for the sake, so I can give you some of the people that are really interested in it. It was Lake Area Technical School. Doug Sharp attended, and he was very interested in doing work on that. Jandyberg was interested from the Community Foundation side. And when I say from their side, this is just people that are there interested in pursuing this gun range. And the gun range would be south of the softball fields, and they're going to put it up there. It's going to be projected to be south of the fields. Lee Gable was there from the county. John
In the black
Hills.
to the
Yep,
right
yep,
on the
just
bottom
like-
there.
So this is the ball field that's being constructed, 17th
that's
Street.
correct.
So it'd be,
And it's in this,
right, south soccer, not softball.
yep, soccer fields are over here. Yep, so it's this patch of land right here that he's talking about.
And there, we had Lee Gable was there from the county, and of course you think about that, they go someplace up by Florence to do their shooting. The president of the Lake Area Pistol and Rifle Club, they talked about 4-H clubs using it. There was just a lot of the game fish and parks people were there. Mike was there from that, and he indicated a couple of different money sources that would be available through the game fish and parks. And we didn't really get into it too much, honestly, because this was just a preliminary meeting. But it is certainly something that we've talked about here. But like I said, I thought he was talking about Watertown Police, but there are just a whole bunch of people that are interested in that. So Megan Grumman, the county sheriff. Well, he wasn't there, but Lee Gable was there from the county. And he was going to go talk to the sheriff about their using it. And of course, immediately you start talking about the potential of leasing it out to area police departments, and really it's a ground floor meeting. We're going to meet again next week on Thursday and Friday to talk about this again. So I think each week we'll probably have more things that will come to the council here. But as people are going to pursue avenues of financing, that's always the thing, is where are you going to get the money? And it was surprising. People started talking about grants that Game Fish and Parks started talking about minimum grant that you can get would be 150 and could be 250,000. Well, at one time, we were talking $1.5 million project. So if 250,000 of it potentially could come from one source, are there other sources available? And, you know, I wanted to bring it up, but I hesitate talking too much about it because then you start, well, people promise this and promise that. Well, no, but they're all gonna look into it. And there were several people that had jobs to do before we meet again next Friday. I think it's the 29th, that we're going to meet again at the police department. So more to follow, but just to kind of let people know that the discussion is happening. And it was really pretty exciting. I thought that all these different entities all of a sudden are saying, oh, we could do this, we could do that. And, you know, they're talking about actually having somebody professionally out there that might sell guns and ammunition and working with the kids, making sure that they have an area that they can hunt. And archery was brought up as a possibility. And now again, you go back to what Shane's saying is, where is it? How much area? Can there be a walking trail there? You know, I mean, I don't know, a walking trail and guns and
It's
bow
all
and
good.
arrow.
It's all good.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just really, it's just bring it up and let you know that there was a discussion of a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of interested entities about this.
And I would also, just kind of tag on that a little bit. Since Shane's got that spot up there right by his pool cue, he's got 37 acres there. To the left is 97 acres, and the city owns all those. The ones on the left is where we were taking the berms out, and that's what we put up on the ball diamond. But I just want to let you know also, in visiting with the Game Fish and Parks, there's a new Secretary of Game Fish, Mr. Hepler, and he has a top list of 4 things that he wants to get done in the state. Number 1 on his list is to get a new Game Fish and Parks building, and here in Watertown. So we're kind of looking at, you know, areas that would work for them. You know, if you've got a gun range right there next door, would it work in that area? I don't know. It's just things that are being thrown around. If we would be willing to possibly sell them 15 acres, they talked about building trails, like you said, Dan. It's just exciting what could happen out in that part of the country. So I wanted to throw that out to you. It's very positive. Mike, maybe you want to share our walkthrough at the community center today. That was good.
It was very cold, but we did have the opportunity to go through the facility with the architect and with the people from Pitts Construction, and it's coming along very well. They're working hard right now to get the roofing systems done so that they can enclose the building and start getting heat in there. But because of the temperatures and some of the weather days that we've had, I think, what did he say? They've lost 14 and a half days in the last month and a half, I think it was. So that's kind of delayed getting heat into the building. But all of the steel work is done. All of the prefab work is done. They've been diligently working on the roofing system. When that's done, the heat will go in, and then they'll start pouring all the main floors into the facility. And then once that's done, then they'll start building the individual rooms in there that are not that are not load-bearing rooms. So they can build a lot of rooms, then that will be on the flooring itself. So, but it was a very good tour. What's that?
The one building is 99.
The one section. Yeah, the area of the where the 4 gyms are, it's that section of the building is as far as the structure is concerned, is pretty much done. It just, they got some work to do there, and then they'll start pouring the flooring in there. You don't realize how big that building is till you get on the inside. You look at it on the outside and you kind of go, well, the first thing we walked into was the pool area, and on the outside it really doesn't do much for you as far as size. You walk in, you go, wow, this is really quite large. So it's interesting how that image changes from inside to outside the building. But it's coming along, and they're hoping within probably a couple of weeks, I think they said, to be able to start getting heat in there. And then once that happens, then they'll see a lot of things going on internally there.
Is the pool dug?
It is not dug, won't be dug. That'll be dug quite a bit later on. There'll be a lot of work done before that.
Thanks, Mike. It was good. And they said there's probably close to 2 foot of frost in the ground is what, and when they get the heat going in there, what'd they say, 7 inches a day it goes down? Yeah. I do have a video here I'd like to play for you guys. This came from one of the architects, and it's on the softball complex. Helms Associates and RS Architects. I wanted to show you this. Kind of what it's going to look like, just a little flyby. No, I'm not in this at all. And that's how it's going to look when it's done. I thought that was pretty cool. Just an update too, in one of our meetings that we had with the softball, we are looking at putting in the lights, I believe probably within about a month and a half. They're going to go through the frozen tundra out there. And I was concerned about that because I thought, well, we don't want to be pouring concrete on frozen ground. But what they do is on the light itself, it goes down about 16 feet, and they come already with a concrete around them. So they drill the hole, they put it down with the 2 feet of ice that they've got in the ground right now. They will thaw it up about a foot up, but they'll drill them this year. This about a month and a half from now, they're going to drill them. They'll put them in, and then they'll set them. I was concerned about that. I thought, well, they can't do that. Mike, you probably have more information on this, but I talked to Pitts Construction today. I said, is that something that works? He says, absolutely. So we're looking, and what we'd like to do is get some of that in, get the boring done for the electrical through there. So next year when they're grading that ground, we don't have all that big heavy equipment driving on it. So it's just a little update on the ballparks. Okay, I think that's all I got. I rambled enough.
I
Anybody
got
else?
one other thing. I don't know if anybody's noticed or gone down Highway 212 and seen the new banners up. They replaced the holiday banners with the Redland banners. Thanks to Julie Ranum and the Redland family has allowed us to use some of their artwork and put in a lot of hard work. And Megan kind of coordinated it from the chamber with the utilities. They'll soon go up uptown. I thought they looked pretty great out there, so.
Okay, anything else? Anybody out there want to throw something out? Okay, at this time, I will adjourn the meeting. We'll be back here at 7 o'clock for the You ready, Bruce? Okay, and welcome to the Tuesday, January 19, 2016 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Shelley, you want to do roll call for us?
Albertson?
Here.
Bueller?
Here.
Danforth?
Here.
Manti? Here. Riefenberger? Here. Roby? Here. Solom? Absent. Thorson?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Vilhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. And just for the record, John is at the tourism conference in Pierre, and he'll be there till Friday. So the first thing is approval of consent agenda. I would like to get a motion and a second. Motion by Bruce, second by Beth. Any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, approval of the agenda. I'll look for a motion and a second. Motion by Randy, second by Bruce. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, application for a new retail on-off sale malt beverage license and South Dakota farm wine license to the Cottington County Historical Society, doing business as Cottington County Historical Society at 27 First Avenue Southeast. At this particular time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. This is your opportunity. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Beth. Are there any questions?
What's the intent with this?
Christie, if you want to come up, you can certainly do that for us. Either one, yep. And just say your name and.
My name is Christy Lickey, and I work at the Cottington County Historical Society. The intent of the license is to conduct a fundraiser at the museum.
So is this a one-time, or is this an annual / permanent?
It's intended to be twice a year.
Okay.
And that's why we went for this license, because the one-time transfer costs more. And so if we did the event twice a year, then this would be, would provide for more profit for the fundraiser.
Okay, so we're approving a one-year license at that point? Is that what we're doing tonight?
That is correct. Yeah, because it'll have to go through council agenda every year in order to be renewed.
Steve, didn't we bring it up one time of looking at a way of eliminating this so we didn't have to have special licenses for fundraisers like this once?
Well, you know, we had, and we talked about the transfer, and the transfer was, I think, $300, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't it $300 to have a one-time transfer? And they're gonna do a fundraiser, and for $250, they can get the license. But, you know, we do the same thing for the zoo and for other facilities, so it just kind of goes right along with it.
And this is not a special license of any kind. This is just a regular malt beverage license like everybody else
Right.
has that they'll get and they'll have every year. So
And the reason they did that is just because it's more
it's
feasible.
more
Yeah.
cost effective.
Right.
Yes.
So what we're.
So I can't come over to the zoo to the historical society and walk around with a.
I don't know what you can do at the zoo, but yes.
So just for clarification, though, we're basically approving a license that you'll have for a year, but your intention is to use it twice, at least.
Our intention is to use it twice in the first year, and then depending on the success of the event, to rethink what we do with it the next year.
Perfect, okay.
Mayor, we had talked once about nonprofits, certain nonprofits, about waiving the fee for their use. Do we do that with the zoo?
We do not. They pay,
They do pay.
yes. It's the Zoological Society that actually gets the license.
It's,
And the same with the
you
chamber
know,
when they do twinkling,
Chamber
right?
pays, zoo pays, everybody pays.
it just seems odd to me that, I mean, you receive money from the city, don't you, from
Yes, we do.
each budget year, but then we turn around and take it back when you're trying to do things that raises money for you to be more self-sufficient. I still think that there is a place for a waiver of fees in certain applications.
You know,
And
the difficult, Mike, is though, and I'm not trying to pick anybody out of the clouds here, but you've got the, the Ducks Unlimited, you got the Cottington County Pheasants, and you got all these organizations that really are nonprofit. Where do you stop? It's either all or none, I think.
well,
is what
they
you
don't
gotta
get
do.
any city funding.
Well, they don't. No, I understand that, but they're still nonprofit. I mean, the only way you could do that is if you said nonprofit that gets city funding.
Well, it just seems like that's still something that should get looked at. It just seems a little crazy to me, but good luck with your doing license if you get it. But it just seems like we shouldn't be worrying about places like the zoo, which is our own entity, the museum, which we're supporting, significantly financially. It just seems like in those applications, we should be able to come up with a definition of where it should be allowed. And instead of, it's just, I don't think it's a all or nothing deal. I think there's certain things that could be done, but we'll look at this for right now, but I think that's something that we should bring up and take
How
a
about
look
if
at.
you arrested at your events, you get a rebate? Is that, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, you know,
Deal.
bet that's not so crazy if you, when they come forward to the city next year and you're looking for X amount of dollars, add in $250 and see if they'll approve it. No, I'm serious.
Okay.
It's worth a shot, you know, and you could do that for any of them. And unless you guys want to address this at a later time and take a look at doing something different.
When you look at DU and you look at all those other ones like that, they usually have somebody come in with a license that caters the whole event, and where this is done more as a fundraiser for that, just
Yeah.
for that
Yeah, and
portion of it.
You will see that on number 4 here when we come across.
Well, why don't we have this, add this to one of our work sessions so we can have some discussion on it and see if it has any merit.
Well, we can certainly do that. Shelley, you want to put that down on your calendar? We'll bring it forward. Any other questions? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck, Christie. Let us know the dates and these guys will be
I'll
there.
be selling you all tickets.
All right. Thank you for being here. Okay, moving on. Number 4, application for a temporary location transfer and return of a retail on-sale liquor license owned by Zeus Incorporated, doing business as Second Street Station as follows. For the period of 3 p.m. January 22nd of 2016 to 2 a.m. January 23rd, 2016, from 15 Second Street Southwest to 1910 West Kemp. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I will look for a motion, a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Randy. Is there any questions on this? Hearing none? Oh,
What is the event that's going on out there?
It's Boys and Girls Club camel races.
yeah. Yeah, this is the camel races out there. And the city of Watertown has a camel in it. It's gonna be, I'm not telling you what it's gonna be. That's probably a secret.
Okay, do you think we can get over the hump?
Oh, my. It was a good one. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have to transfer it back. So for the period after 2:01 a.m., January 23rd of 2016, from 1910 West Kemp to 15 Second Street Southwest. This is a public hearing. I will open that if there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Glenn, second by Bruce. Any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading of ordinance number 1601, amending section 21.5402 of the revised ordinances of the city of Watertown. Shane, if you want to give us just a little heads up what we're talking about here?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is a ordinance that is unique to the Gateway Overlay District. And essentially, what this ordinance revision does is it takes items which previously non-conforming items were brought to the Planning Commission. And now what the revisions of this would be is it brings it to a committee that's been formed. We meet weekly. It's a planning and zoning committee for operations in the city. And we would take on those non-conforming issues at that level of our city government and then bring those forward to the planning commission if the party that's asking for the non-conforming issues would not agree with our decision. So, and basically it's reviewing colors and some minor revisions, nothing significant.
You know, Shane, it's been brought to my attention that there is a planning and zoning committee already or commission. And the concern is that the wording in here, the mayor's planning and zoning committee, maybe should be something different.
Yeah, we can certainly amend it to whatever's appropriate.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is we'll talk about that in our meeting on Tuesday.
Okay,
And then we can bring this back next week with a suggestion on a different name.
sure.
You know, something that doesn't sound like the exact same name we already have on the,
This only applies to the overlay district, right?
that is correct.
So
Correct.
Then maybe all you
And
gotta
this-
do is
this
just put
came
in their
forward-
overlay district committee, planning committee or something then, and
You know, you know, we could, but I think we need to be open for other things. And this was brought up to us from the planning commission, is who would like to see this done so that everything doesn't come in front of them, these small piddly little things. So I'd say we'll work on the name, get something figured out and bring it forward to you guys here at the next meeting, if that's okay.
Shane, does this only pertain to items that are unique in the Gateway District that doesn't pertain in standard ordinances?
Okay, where this discussion, I'll give you the long answer, not real long answer, but the discussion was, this was a planning commission decision, then it got boiled down to the building official decision, and he wasn't really comfortable having all of the decision power be on his shoulders, so we decided to expand that out to our group that meets weekly to have more discussion amongst the larger group pertaining to those. So really, this is just defining a group that would review minor altercations from this ordinance.
So if there was a need for a setback variance, would that go to this group or would that go to regular planning commission?
That would still go to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, so that would go there. So we're really only talking about some of those unique items, certain heights, colors, building materials, as
Yep.
it pertains, maybe some signage issues, as it pertains to the Gateway District.
Correct.
Okay.
I've got a question on one word in there. It says may be presented. Shouldn't it be must be presented if it's non-conforming? Or is it may because if they don't want to conform, they can just let the issue drop and, you see where I'm saying, Shane? Right, in the third paragraph, or,
I do.
I think it is kind of a they may, only because we might not grant something up there and run it in front of the planning commission, am I correct?
Correct. We'll revisit that language right there. I'll circle it. We'll
Are you
talk about
talking
it.
in number 4, Glenn?
Steve, when you say we, who exactly are you referring to? This is that group
Yep,
that
it's
meets
the,
weekly?
yeah, it's the
Who's in
building.
that, who's
the-
in that group?
Yep, the building official, the mayor, the city attorney, there's Tim Lallam is there, there's Shane, of course, there's Jill is there, First District is represented. There's a group, how many is there, Shane? Is there about
11.
10? 11, okay.
And we would also include the planning commission needs to be comfortable with this language as well. So this was run by the planning commission for their recommendation to bring to you folks. So we'll fine tune this language and bring it back to you with some more input. And you can make the change, whatever changes you want to
Yeah.
with this without going back to the planning commission.
Okay.
My-
And
my
this is just
question-
first reading.
My question would be, why do we limit it to the Gateway?
Well, I think that's kind of the area that is really have been under concern, and we really don't want to change things in the rest of the town.
The-
And I think the planning commission needs to see those other things.
Yep.
Probably too many things going on out there at one time, and they
A lot of
don't
stuff.
need a little relief from.
There are some things that apply to the Gateway that don't apply
Right.
anywhere else in the community, and thus the Gateway has certain restrictions. And I think, we've addressed, to use color as an example, it's very restrictive, and I'm not sure that they would have the wherewithal to know where they go with that, as an example.
That is
And I think
correct.
that's probably what they're looking at, is saying,
Well, and I
let's
think
get that
we-
out of our hands, you guys deal with it, and so that's why it wouldn't apply maybe across the board.
Okay, let's move on. That was first reading. We'll bring that forward. Shane will make the changes, and then we'll have much more discussion on it. Number 6, resolution number 1607, approving the settlement of the collective bargaining negotiation between the City of Watertown and Local Union 2488 of the American Federation State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO. At this time, I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Bill, second by Beth. I just wanted to mention that when Shelley and I worked on all three unions, this is the last one to come in. I'm pretty proud of the fact that unlike Mitchell, who was going through a real tough time with their unions, this went through extremely well. And I think the unions themselves looked at it as something that we could work with. They asked for some stuff, and we asked for some stuff, and it all kind of went very, very smooth. And again, I want to thank you, Shelley, for all the work that you did on it. It was took a lot of time that we spent on it. So if there aren't any questions on that, we had just a couple little minor changes in the union contract, and it all went well. If no questions, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 7, resolution number 1602, providing for the classification of salaries of certain City of Watertown employees and officers for the period commencing January 1st, 2016. At this time, I will look for a motion and a second for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion with one change on it, and that would be to add $5,000 to the salary of the mayor, with it being a dual job. I think that maybe that should have a little bit of a higher order than, when, I think it should be more of a job where it gets closer to other department chairs. Realizing this is not a department chair job, it still has a lot of the expectations of
Okay.
a department chair. And so I would just make that as a motion.
All right, I do have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bruce. Any questions?
Located at in this listing?
It is item 7, go to the
It's on the last page.
It's on the
Last
last
page.
page.
Yep, it's the annual salaries for the elected officials. And the salaries as they sit right there reflect a 4% increase over last year's number, and that's consistent with the rest of the employees' increases. So the 5,000 would be added to that 73,860 number.
Any other questions?
Shelley, if we were to do that, what does that do to our wage matrix? I mean, as far as the grade and the steps?
It doesn't do anything. Elected officials are not on the wage matrix, only the employees are. It would just add 5,000 to the budget.
Okay, so I have a.
Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay, Brad's recusing. At this time, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, resolution number 1603, providing for the classification and salaries of certain City of Watertown employees for the period commencing January 1st, 2016. At this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. Are there any questions on this one? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, authorization for mayor to sign the golf professional agreement with Pearson Golf Management. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion on this. Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Don. This actually also, Jay, if you want to come up, there might be some questions. This went very, very well. The couple little changes that were made on Levi's golf contract is he got a 3-year contract. So I think that really gave him some stability, so he knows that he's going to be in charge of this golf situation for the next 3 years. I think that was necessary, and I had talked to him about that last year when he gave me a 1-year contract, that we would look at it further. And another thing that we really did take over is the city has computers out there, and we decided that within our organization, we had, about 5 or 6 of us in that committee, that we will take care of those 3 computers. He still has one of his own that he has to take care of, needs to take some things off of it so that it's strictly used for his personal business. The other thing that we changed is the marshals and carts, just who takes care of what. We thought it was important that Levi, since he works with the marshals all the time, that really Todd, our groundskeeper, shouldn't be finding the marshals and getting them out there when there's a golf tournament or something. So Levi is gonna take those over, and then his people will also put the carts away and bring them out and take care of that. It's kind of basically only changes, is it not, Jay?
That's correct. Those are the three main points. And Levi, I've spoken with Levi on different occasions, and he is in agreement with the contract as it is right now.
Do I have a motion, Shelley? Okay. Any other questions then for Jay?
So,
Any
so
comments?
the items, Jay, that are listed in here in regards to the items which he receives a percentage of are the same as what they were last year?
The percentages are all the same.
And the items are all the same? Are there anything been added to that
No,
or
no.
taken away?
No.
Okay.
It went well. So I do have a motion, a second on the floor. If there's no more questions, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Jay, for doing that. I think that turned out extremely well, and I think Levi's happy, and relay to him that we're happy that he's on board now for 3 more years, for sure.
Thanks. It'll be easier going forward.
All right, and you hang on, because we got another one here next here for you. Number 10, authorization for the mayor to sign agreement for engineering services for the foundation field lighting project in the amount of $9,450. This time I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Beth, second by Glenn. Are there any questions on that? Or maybe, Jay, go ahead and just give a little up-to-date on that.
Well, this is for the engineering services to get the foundation field lighting project kicked off. The intention, the budgeted project in 2016 is to light the northwest field, that foundation field. That's field number 4. And I know the baseball community is very anxious to get this project going and hopefully be able to use the lights out there this summer. So we want to get it kicked off so the engineers can get to work, and hopefully we can get the project going and possibly even work with, if it would work out that way, to work with the softball complex we're working on. If it would, contracts would fall in place, that it would be the same people. We might see some savings there and some expediency to the project.
Jay, is this engineering group, are they a part of the people, are they associated with the folks that will put these up, that'll actually put the lights in place?
Yes, these are actually, the low bid was the folks that are working with us with the softball complex.
Okay, so this is an engineering fee they have to charge before they
Yeah,
can
yeah.
get it underway. Thanks.
And you did have other bids that came in on that.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Jay? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Number 11, consideration of bids received for 2 police utility vehicles. Scotty,
Mr. Mayor, I will recuse myself from this
okay.
conflict of interest.
So Scott, maybe you can give us a little update, and then we'll get a motion and a second on the floor for discussion.
Sure. Good evening. In December 12th and 19th, we advertised for bids for 2 SUV police vehicles. The closing date on that was December 28th, and we did receive 1 bid for those 2 SUV vehicles, and I'd be happy to explain the bid and discuss that with you tonight.
Perfect. So what I'll do right now is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike. Any questions you have for Scott on this? Can you show us the stuff on the screen there, Ray?
Scott, I got a question for you. It seems like for the last several years, probably the last 3 or 4 years, when we go out for police vehicles, we get 1 bid.
Yes.
Have we painted ourselves into a corner on our requirement that's getting us into a 1 bid situation? Or why is there no other interest in bidding these vehicles?
I think it's because of the industry. Police vehicles have special options that limits which manufacturers are able to provide vehicles. Chevy basically has a couple vehicles. They have a Tahoe version and a Impala. And then Ford has the Taurus and Explorer. And Dodge has the Dodge Charger. So essentially, there's not a lot of vehicles out there to choose from. And in some cases, agencies might request it to be an all-wheel drive or something something different than what's a standard option. The other thing is, agencies tend to pick the same type of vehicle year after year after year, and the reason for that is there's anywhere from, $2,000 to $5,000 worth of equipment that needs to be transferred from the old vehicle to the new vehicle. So, for example, if you move from a Dodge Charger to a Ford Explorer, all that equipment has to be purchased new again. So that's some of the reason why, agencies tend to stick with the same type of vehicle. There are police studies that are done every year on all those vehicles that I mentioned. And, they're all great vehicles. All the manufacturers put out a great police vehicle. But when it comes right down to it, a lot of times it's, dollars and cents and what the agency previously had.
Scott, what kind of vehicles are these?
The two SUVs that we received one bid for are Ford Explorers, and that bid did come from Watertown Ford. Yep. And these are four-wheel drive vehicles, four-wheel drive Ford Explorers. And we currently have 3 of them in the fleet already, so, and they've served us well so far.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 12, consideration of bids received for one police patrol vehicle. And Scott, if you want to give us a little update on that too.
Sure, this is for a police car, and this happens to be a Dodge Charger that we received a bid for. And I should mention too, all of these are within our budget allowance that we had for this year. The Dodge Charger, it is an all-wheel drive vehicle, and that will have the bigger V8 engine, but it gets comparable gas mileage as what the V6 does, so we're comfortable with that. And we do feel that the all-wheel drive has some benefits here in Watertown, South Dakota during the middle of the winter.
Okay, so Scott, what I'll do is I'll look for a motion, a second for discussion. Motion by Beth, second by Mike. Any questions on this one for Scott?
I got a quick one for you, Scott. I
Sure.
think we've talked about this a little bit before. Maybe you can refresh my memory, but why, we talked about mileage, and mileage was pretty comparable, one to the other, the SUVs to these.
Yes.
Why don't we just standardize on the SUVs? You got more room. I mean, it seems like it'd be a bulkier vehicle. Why don't we do that?
I think we are working in that direction, Bruce. The reason why this one is a Dodge Charger is because we currently have a Dodge Charger that we're taking out of service, and all that equipment will fall right into this new vehicle. Now, we could have received a bid for a Chevy Caprice or a Ford Taurus, and we'd have certainly looked at those bids and then calculated that into the cost of switching over all the equipment. But in this case, we did just receive the one bid from Watertown Ford for a Dodge Charger, and it just happens to be that that's the type of vehicle that we're taking out of service, so it works out for us.
Is there an advantage, though, to having a few squad cars versus all SUVs? I mean, if you've got to chase Bruce down the highway, is it better to have a car or the?
There are some
Good
ergonomic issues, I guess. Some officers are taller than others, and they like the Ford Explorers, and some officers are shorter, and they like the Dodge Chargers. So I mean, it just depends on the officer, but.
I just wondered if there was an advantage to, because I do like the idea of going towards a fleet, and I've certainly been in communities where they have almost all four-wheel drive SUV
Sure.
type vehicles. I'm just looking at, is it to our benefit to maintain a portion of our fleet as patrol cars, or is it good to just continue, as Bruce said, to move towards the all-wheel drive, or SUVs, I should say?
Right. Well, we do have one all-wheel drive Dodge Charger right now that we had purchased last year, and this new one is an all-wheel drive Dodge Charger. So they do have the four-wheel drive capabilities, just like the Explorers. I guess the difference is just the amount of headroom in the vehicle for some drivers that are taller. So really, it works out to have a couple of each, but I think down the road, we would look at trying to move towards that SUV route just because of all the equipment that is inside the vehicle versus in the trunk, which gets cold in the trunk. So I think we are moving that direction, but right now we just have too much equipment that's too new to dispose of, and it just works for us to try and go for another Charger again this year.
Okay, any other questions for Scott? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Is there any old business that needs to be discussed?
Steve, I don't necessarily have old business other than, I think just publicly, I'd like to thank Dan. I've worked with him a lot of times on Arrow Education Foundation, news articles. We see his reporting here on different things. He's always here. And I'd just publicly like to thank him for doing what he does. And there was a little mix-up last couple of weeks ago. Certainly wasn't intended toward Dan. It was just whatever. And I just appreciate the fact, Dan, the job that you do, and I'd like to thank you for it.
And anybody that likes chocolate chip cookies has to be okay in my book. Yeah. There's a story behind there, isn't there, Dan, huh? Remember that? Yeah.
I have some old business I'd like to bring up. It's about, we see our softball diamonds progressing so good down there. I worry about traffic being able to turn left, all the traffic we're going to be generating over there. And I was just driving out there looking around. What can we do? We've talked to the state. They won't let us put lights in places. And I was, just trying to throw something off the wall and see if it sticks. Right? I heard it earlier. But is there any way that we could go by the, on 14th there by Strudevants? Is there a way we can go behind there by the pipeline and join up with 19th Street there? So we can divert traffic that way?
Right, can you guys get that up on the screen for me, somebody? Anybody? Okay, there you go, Shane. Can you zoom in on that 14th? I think what Brad is insinuating or saying is that when we get this new ball diamond going, and we get the new ice fields going, you got the soccer going, you got a gun range going, and you possibly have other businesses going down there, that road's gonna be pretty darn busy. And that's on 17th Street. And I think what you're asking, Brad, is, 14th goes straight up. Yep, because we put in the new 14th Street down there. That'll go straight up. And then you've got 17th Street there, which is gonna be a nightmare to get onto Highway 212, I believe. So then, what you're saying is there a way that we could talk to the DOT or somebody and get either a light on 14th to do some work with J.H. Larson, or get a road built over to 19th Street, which goes out through that Menards corner?
That
So
already
there's
does have a
stoplight to
light.
get on and off.
So all you basically have to do is build a road from 19th over to 17th.
Exactly. Someplace in there to hook on. And Shane, you can kind of give us an idea on that. Is there anything feasible in there?
Okay.
Zoom that in a little bit, will you?
First, I'll give you the broad shot. We did have a discussion with DOT about moving this light that's located here in front of the mall at 13th Street over to 14th Street, and they weren't very receptive at this time. And there are some geometry issues with the intersection of 14th regarding the building that's there. 14th Street will be extended south into the softball complex and reconnected over to 17th Street. What could possibly be a future plan if the DOT doesn't want to relocate a light up along 212 at this time is we could maybe plan on blazing a path across the north end of the soccer fields and reconnect up into this old, it looks like old railroad grade or something. And right here is where the backyard entrance is to Menards. That roadway could be continued southeast and then connected to a route back to 17th Street. And again, we would do that on our own if we can't find a way to find improvements in the intersections of 17th or 14th.
Shane, are they technically not in approval with the 14th, or are they financially not in?
More technically, I'll zoom in here and give you a little idea. See, 14th Street comes straight north and does have a nice wide intersection from the south. But coming from the north, that's built on the old roadway infrastructure and alignments. And two things make them nervous. One, that this doesn't come straight north and south into 212. And then they're concerned about having to take right-of-way and the impact to this building right here to try to straighten it out to have a proper alignment with 14th Street headed south. That's what they're apprehensive about. And of course, they have certain criteria and so forth that they evaluate these with, and they just don't like the geometry of that intersection. And that's why they're reluctant to move a light system over to that location.
The problem is their counting becomes kind of, you know, not really accurate either, because every time you go in that area, you go down to the stoplight. So it looks like that stoplight's really being heavily used. Well, it is, because you can't, if you go up to the Hy-Vee corner or to Watertown 4, any of those places, you just well know you're gonna turn right. So you don't get a very accurate count, because people avoid that, those other intersections or ingress points.
Right.
I'd like to just share, I had the DOT give me a road count estimate of what's gonna be coming off of the softball fields and the ice fields and everything. They expect on 17th Street that there will probably, when we get them built, close to 4,200 to 4,300 cars a day will be going up and down that road. That's what they gave me for a number.
Can you zoom back in on that by G.H. Larson there?
What's,
Remember, what's across the street to the west of G.H.?
yeah, this facility has Hy-Vee Liquor and the Ghost Town Winery and something else in the middle. I don't recall what this building is here.
That's G.H. Larson in the warehouse space.
Have we talked to them about getting a light on 17th at all? A three-way or whatever?
We have, it's come up in conversation. I wouldn't say there's any final decisions been made, and we have discussed about that. It's good to bring it up again, and it will get further discussion out in Pierre.
Yeah, because I know that that's going to be an issue here.
17th would be a better throughway anyway than 14th would be.
Well,
Well, 17th stop, that's a three-way. 19th is the best, actually.
Right.
I like the idea that was brought up.
You'd have to come way down south.
But you know, there's things that we
But as
can
far
do,
as the
we
next
can
to
talk
get
to
the left turn,
landowners.
it's straight out there for a left turn.
the concern, and I'm not speaking for the DOT, but what I anticipate what their concern is that a light at 17th Street is too close to 19th Street.
Shane, go that way, whatever that is,
Pick up the
southeast.
Williams pipeline, will you? Zoom in on that a little bit.
Yeah, now move it to
Okay, just
the east. Oops. See what I'm saying?
Don't go too far. I think
Okay.
what Mike is looking at is if you go a little bit there, a little to the north, if there's a way that we could possibly deal with Williams Pipeline and come across and over, that'd be a whole lot cheaper.
That's kind of what I was wondering initially.
across the north.
Yeah. If we could deal with Williams, you know, they got their filling part right there that kind of at the end of your pool cue, but
I'm not sure what this building is for them. I'm assuming it's,
that,
Where the trucks check in and check out.
right.
Yeah.
So we would maybe have to change the alignment of these and then create a roadway across here.
but you know, Scott might be, doesn't Scott own that building right there, Randy, that Billion building now?
This one.
No. Unlease.
Okay, well, you know, whoever owns that might be willing to work out some kind of an agreement.
So in essence, the idea is to continue 10th Avenue across.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea if we could get that done.
Yeah, if Williams Pipeline is interested in
Maybe we just say
realigning
that-
their entrance.
Maybe we could say that that road had always been planned to be in there and they built that building on city-owned property. See, you gotta,
That's a lot less road than what you're talking about.
Brad, I think that's a great idea, and I will talk to Joel on Thursday. I have a meeting with him at 11 o'clock in Pier, so we'll, make me a picture of that so I can take that to him on Thursday, will you? Anybody else have anything under old business they want to discuss? That's great. Any new business? Any liaison member reports that need to be talked about?
I just want to make a comment on the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. As many of you probably have heard, there's a new director, Julie Knutson, got hired for that job. The assistant of that department has resigned, so she's kind of flying solo right now. She is out in Pier at the tourism conference, but just, that's up and running, that she's going as fast as she can to catch up. And then she just did make a comment, though, that everybody's been real helpful to get her started.
Okay, any other member reports? Need to go into executive session. I do have a couple, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items I need to talk about. Maybe not that many, but contract negotiations or personnel issues. So I would look for a motion a second to go into executive session. Motion by Randy, second by Glenn. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I was going to say there will not be any action taken tonight.